The diplomatic quarters of Nexus Prime buzzed with activity like a disturbed anthill. Representatives from 40 different worlds had gathered for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The fight in the arena had ended just 2 hours ago, but already the news was spreading across 1,000 planets. Ambassador Lee. So Young walked through corridors filled with alien dignitaries. Each creature she passed looked at her with new eyes. Before the fight, most of them had ignored her or treated her like a curiosity from a primitive world. Now they stepped aside respectfully, and some even bowed their heads in greeting. The main council chamber was a circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars in real time. Floating platforms held the representatives from each member world, while holographic displays showed data and communications from across the Galaxy Council. Leader Zintar called the session to order. The ancient being looked like a walking tree covered in golden bark. His voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. We have gathered to discuss the events in the arena today and what they mean for Earth application to join our alliance. General Vex Tar stood on his platform looking much less confident than he had that morning. Honored counselors, he began, his voice shaking slightly. I must revise my earlier assessment of human military capabilities. The demonstration today showed that we have underestimated this species. Murmurs of agreement came. From around the chamber, several other military leaders nodded their heads in acknowledgement. It was rare for a proud Vorthan general to admit he had been wrong. Counselor Rixhan activated a holographic display showing the fight in slow motion. Have analyzed the combat footage extensively, he announced. The human victory was not luck or accident. It demonstrated several qualities that could be valuable to our alliance. The crystal being highlighted different parts of the recording. First, tactical analysis. The human studied his opponent and identified the optimal target. Second, precision. The strike was placed with perfect accuracy despite the chaos of combat. Third, restraint. The human could have killed his opponent but chose to use non-lethal force. This last point caused excited discussion among the council members. Many galactic wars had been fought because warrior species could not control their aggression. A species that could fight effectively while showing mercy was extremely rare. Ambassador. So Young was invited to address the council. She stood on the central platform, feeling the weight of 40 different alien gazes upon her. Honored representatives, she began, her voice clear and strong. Today you saw one example of human capability. But Commander Kang represents something larger than individual skill. She activated her own display showing images from Earth military academies where students trained in hand-to-hand combat schools, where children learned discipline and respect alongside mathematics and science hospitals, where doctors work to save lives from all species. Humans do not see strength and compassion as opposites. So Young continued, we believe that true warriors must be scholars, healers, and protectors, as well as fighters. Our military forces are trained to win battles, but also to build peace. The council listened with growing interest. Several representatives asked questions about human society and culture. They wanted to understand how a species could produce warriors like Dae Ho while also creating art, music, and literature. Defense Minister Cole ran from the hegemony worlds, stood to speak. His species looked like giant insects with blue shells. The hegemony had initially opposed Earth membership, but his tone was respectful now. If I may ask, Ambassador, how many of your warriors possess skills similar to Commander Kang? So Young smiled. That is difficult to answer precisely. Our special forces number in the tens of thousands. But the principles. He demonstrated discipline, study respect for opponents, and precise application of force. These are taught to all human soldiers. The chamber fell quiet as the implications sank in. Earth was not offering one exceptional warrior, but an entire military. Culture built around the ideals they had just witnessed. Commander Kang Dae Ho entered the chamber. At that moment, he had been treated by medical teams and given fresh clothes, but he still moved with the same calm confidence that had won the fight. Arena security escorted him to the witness platform, where he stood at attention. Council leader Zintar addressed him directly. "Commander, you have given us much to consider. Your demonstration today has changed how we view your species." Deho bowed. "Respectfully, honored leader, I am glad I could represent Earth well, but I want the Council to understand something important. I am not special among my people. Every human soldier trains as I have trained. We learn that true strength comes from discipline. Knowledge and the willingness to protect others. Is this really true?" asked Counselor Nex von, a reptilian being from the Outer Rim worlds. "Every human warrior has such skills. Not every warrior," Dai-Ho replied honestly, "but every warrior has the opportunity to learn. We believe that anyone can become strong if they are willing to work hard enough and never give up." The council session continued for 3 more hours. Representatives asked detailed questions about human military organization training, methods, and philosophy. Deho answered each question with the same calm honesty he had shown in the arena. Finally, council leader Zintar called for a vote. "The question before us is simple. Do we accept Earth as a full member of the Galactic Alliance 1? By 1, the platforms lit up with votes. Green lights appeared across the chamber as species after species voted yes. Even General Vex Tar voted in favor. His earlier opposition completely reversed. The final tally was unanimous. 40 votes in favor. 0 opposed. Earth is welcomed as the newest member of the Galactic Alliance, Zintar announced. 3 months after the fight that changed everything, Commander Deho stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force flagship Harmony. The massive ship hung in space above Earth like a silver moon surrounded by smaller vessels from a dozen alien worlds. The scene would have been impossible just 1 year ago. Earth had been alone in the galaxy, a primitive world that the great powers ignored. Now human ships served alongside Vorthan cruisers, Altarian science vessels, and hegemony destroyers. The alliance that had seemed like a distant dream was now reality. Admiral Park. Su-Jin, the highest-ranking officer in the Earth fleet, joined Deho at the large window. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had spent 30 years building Earth naval forces from almost nothing to this moment. "Quite a view, isn't it, Commander?" she said, looking out at the mixed fleet. "Yes," Admiral Deho replied. "It still seems hard to believe sometimes." The 2 humans watched as a group of alien cadets practiced formation, flying in small training ships. The pilots were learning human tactics, while human instructors learned alien technology. The exchange of knowledge was happening faster than anyone had expected. A communication alert chimed, and Admiral Park activated the display. General Vex Tar appeared in holographic form. His scarred face showed an expression that Deho was still getting used to. "Respect, Admiral Park." General Vex Tar said with a formal bow, "I am calling to inform you that the Vorthan High Command has approved the joint training program. 50 of our best young warriors will come to Earth next month to study at your military academies. That is excellent news." General Park replied, "We look forward to working with them." Vex Tar turned his attention to Deho. "Commander, I have a personal request to make. My youngest son, Thon Var, is among the warriors coming to Earth. I would be honored if he could train under your instruction." Deho was surprised by the request, but pleased. "I would be happy to work with him." General, after the communication ended, Admiral Park smiled. "You have become quite famous across the galaxy," she said. "Half the warrior species want to learn human fighting techniques. The other half want to test themselves against you. I hope they choose learning over testing," Deho said with a slight grin. The Admiral laughed. "I think most of them will after what happened to Thex Moore." The Vorthan champion had recovered fully from his defeat and had become an unexpected ally. Instead of being ashamed of his loss, he had studied the recording of the fight hundreds of times. He wanted to understand how such a small opponent had found his weakness so easily. Thex Moore now served as a cultural exchange officer helping other species understand human military thinking. A new alert sounded, and Ambassador Lee. So Young appeared on the communication screen. She was calling from the Galactic Council headquarters where she now served. As Earth Permanent Representative Admiral Commander, she said with a tired but happy expression, I have news. The Council has approved the human proposal for the Galactic Peace Corps. Both military officers smiled. The Peace Corps was Earth's idea for using the Alliance's military forces to help planets recover from wars and disasters. Instead of just fighting battles, the combined fleets would also build schools, hospitals, and farms. How many species have volunteered ships? So Young asked 12. So far, Admiral Park replied with pride, including the Vortha Hegemony and Altair systems. The irony was not lost on any of them. The same species that had once questioned human strength were now eager to join human-led humanitarian missions. Later, that evening, Day-Ho returned to his quarters aboard the Harmony. The rooms were small but comfortable with a window that showed the star field beyond. He had been offered larger accommodations on Earth, but preferred to stay with his ship and crew on. His desk were letters from home. His parents were proud, but worried about their son's famous role in galactic politics. His old instructor, Master Park Jin-Woo, would have been amazed to see how far his teachings had traveled. The simple philosophy of finding an opponent's weakness through study and patience was now being taught in military academies across 40 worlds. There was also a letter from Thex Moore written in carefully practiced human script. The Vorthon warrior had been learning Earth languages and customs with the same dedication he once used for fighting. Commander Kang. The letter read, I wanted you to know that our fight changed my understanding of what it means to be strong. I have spent my life believing that size and power were everything. But you showed me that true strength comes from knowledge, discipline, and respect. I am honored to call you a worthy opponent, and I hope someday to call you friend. Day-Ho smiled and composed a reply. Yes, he wrote. You are all ready. My friend, any warrior who can learn from defeat has wisdom that goes beyond fighting. I look forward to training together when the Alliance holds joint exercises next year. As he finished writing, the stars outside his window seemed to shine brighter. The galaxy was still full of dangers, wars could still break out between species, and there would always be those who preferred violence over dialogue. But something had changed in that arena on Nexus Prime. A small man from a small planet had shown that strength came in many forms, and that even the mightiest opponents could be defeated by skill, knowledge, and determination. The lesson was spreading across the stars, carried by stories and videos, and the growing reputation of human warriors. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new species to meet, new techniques to learn, and new problems to solve. But tonight, Day-Ho felt proud of what his people had accomplished. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and the galaxy was a little bit safer because of it. He looked out at the star field one more time before turning off the lights. In 3 seconds, everything had changed. Now the future stretched ahead, full of infinite possibilities. The medical teams rushed onto the arena floor like a swarm of colorful insects. Each alien doctor was a different species with their own specialized equipment. Some had 6 arms for faster treatment. Others had scanner devices built into their bodies. Still others carried medicines that glowed with inner light. They surrounded the fallen Thex Moore with professional efficiency. One doctor that looked like a walking tree ran scanners over the unconscious alien's head. Another that resembled a giant spider checked his arms and legs for broken bones. A third medical being that seemed to be made of liquid metal tested his heart and breathing. Meanwhile, Commander Day-Ho stood quietly nearby. His hands were clasped behind his back in a military rest position. He watched the medical work with calm interest, but showed no emotion about his victory. The human looked like he had just finished a routine training exercise rather than defeating the most feared warrior in the galaxy. The lead doctor was a crystalline being from the Altair system. Its body was transparent blue and sparkled with inner light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "The warrior is alive and stable," it announced. "The nerve disruption will wear off in approximately 6 hours. There is no permanent damage." A wave of relief passed through the crowd. Many aliens had expected to see Thex more killed or crippled. Instead, the human had defeated him with surgical precision. It was almost more impressive than a brutal victory would have been in the VIP section. Ambassador, so young, finally allowed herself to breathe normally. She had been holding her breath since the fight began 3 minutes ago. Around her, the alien dignitaries whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. She could hear the surprise and respect in their voices, even when she could not understand their words. General Vex-Tar still sat in shocked silence. His yellow eyes stared at his fallen champion like he was seeing a ghost. "How was this possible?" he whispered finally. "Your human is tiny. He has no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced strength." So Young turned to face the Vorthon general with the expression of polite satisfaction. "Commander Kang spent 15 years learning the martial arts of Earth. We believe that skill and knowledge can overcome raw power when applied correctly, but Thexmore has won 300 fights." Vex-Tar protested. "He has never even been knocked down before. How could your warrior defeat him so easily?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Counselor Rixhan, the Altarian leader, had been studying video recordings of the fight on a portable device. The crystalline being played the footage in slow motion so everyone could see exactly what had happened. "Observe the human carefully," Rixhan said in his musical voice. He did not rely on strength or speed. Instead, he studied his opponent and found the one weakness that could end the fight instantly. The strike was placed with perfect accuracy on the Vorthan nerve cluster located here. The counselor pointed to a spot on a holographic anatomy display. The other alien leaders leaned forward to get a better look. Several of them made impressed sounds as they realized what they had witnessed. This was not a lucky punch or a desperate move. Instead, it was the result of careful study and years of training. Your warrior knew exactly what he was doing, General Vex-Tar said slowly. The respect in his voice was obvious. He planned this victory from the beginning. Down on the arena floor, reporters from 100 different worlds were trying to get closer to Dae-Ho. Security guards kept them back, but their questions filled the air like buzzing insects. "How did you know where to strike?" "Did you study Vorthan anatomy before the fight? What other earth-fighting techniques do you know? Will you fight again?" Dae-Ho ignored the questions and continued watching the medical teams work on Thexmore. The human showed the same calm focus that had won him the fight. He would not speak until he was sure his opponent was going to be okay. Finally, the medical team leader gave its report. "The patient is stable and ready for transport to the medical facility. He will wake up with nothing more serious than a headache only." Then did Dae-Ho nod and turn toward the reporters. "I will answer questions now," he said simply. The first question came from a reporter that looked like a floating jellyfish with camera eyes. "How did you defeat such a powerful opponent so quickly?" Dae-Ho thought for a moment before answering. "On Earth, we have studied fighting arts for thousands of years. We learned that every opponent has weaknesses if you know how to find them. Size and strength are advantages, but they are not everything." Another reporter, this one resembling a walking crystal tree, asked, "Will Earth warriors always be able to defeat galactic champions?" That made Dae-Ho smile slightly. "Every fight is different," he replied. "No victory is guaranteed, but Earth humans train very hard to be ready for any challenge. We do not give up easily." The questions continued for another 10 minutes before arena security finally escorted Dae-Ho toward the exit. But as he walked across the red sand, the human heard something that made him pause. The crowd was cheering for him. Time moved like frozen lightning in the arena as Commander Dae-ho prepared for the most important 3 seconds of his life. The massive form of Thex Moore filled his vision like a moving mountain. The alien's 4 arms reached out to grab him while yellow eyes blazed with the certainty of victory. But Dae-ho had stopped seeing Thex Moore as an unbeatable monster. Instead, he saw him as Master Park. Jin Woo had taught him to see all enemies, a collection of weak points connected by muscle and bone. Every creature, no matter how strong, had places where a precise strike could end a fight instantly. The gap between neck and shoulder was less than 2 inches wide. It was protected by thick skin and hidden behind the alien's forward momentum. But Dae-ho had practiced this exact strike 10,000 times on training dummies. He could hit a target that small blindfolded as Thex Moore lunged forward. Dae-ho did something that shocked every creature in the arena. Instead of dodging away, he stepped toward the charging alien. He moved like water flowing uphill, defying every instinct that said to run from danger. The crowd gasped as they watched the tiny human seem to throw himself at certain death ambassador. So Young closed her eyes, unable. To watch what looked like suicide, General Vex-Tar smiled, thinking his champion would finally crush the annoying Earth creature. But Dae-ho was not committing suicide. He was threading a needle at the speed of lightning, his left foot planted firmly. On the red sand, his right leg swept up and around, giving him the angle he needed. His whole body became a weapon focused on one tiny target. The movement was so smooth and natural that it looked like he was dancing rather than fighting. Thex Moore's 4 arms closed on empty air. The human had slipped between them like smoke. The alien tried to adjust his grip, but he was moving too fast to change direction. His own momentum carried him past the point where he could stop or turn. That was when Dae-ho struck. His right hand moved with 15 years of training behind it. Every push-up, every practice session, every lesson from his instructors powered this single blow. The edge of his hand hit the nerve cluster with surgical precision. It was not a punch or a chop, but something much more deadly. A pressure point strike that attacked the nervous system itself. The impact made almost no sound, just a small thud like someone tapping on wood, but the effect was immediate and devastating. Thex Moore's entire body went rigid as his nervous system received a shock. It could not process. His 4 arms froze in mid-air. His legs stopped moving. His yellow eyes went wide with confusion for a moment that seemed to last forever. The 8-foot alien warrior hung suspended between victory and defeat. His brain tried to understand what had happened, but the nerve disruption made clear. Thought impossible. Pain shot through his massive body like electric fire, then like a giant tree cut down by a skilled woodsman. Thex Moore crashed to the arena floor. The impact shook the entire building and sent up clouds of red sand that hung in the air like smoke. The undefeated champion of 300 battles lay motionless on his side. The arena fell into complete silence. Millions of alien voices stopped at exactly the same moment. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. The mighty Thex Moore had been defeated, not by superior strength or advanced weapons, but by a single precise strike from a creature 1/4 his size. Dae-ho stood over his fallen enemy breathing. Normally, his heart rate had already returned to its resting pace. The fight was over, but he showed no signs of celebration. Instead, he knelt down and checked Thex Moore's pulse to make sure the alien was still alive. The nerve strike would keep him unconscious for several hours, but would cause no permanent damage. Master Park Jin Woo had taught him that a true warrior never killed, unless absolutely necessary. This had been a demonstration, not an execution. "Medical team to the arena floor," Dae-ho called out in a calm voice. His words carried clearly in the stunned silence. Slowly the crowd began to make sounds again, but these were not the cheers and roars from before. Instead, there were whispers and gasps as millions of alien minds tried to process what they had seen. Some creatures pointed at the human with tentacles or claws. Others took pictures with devices that glowed in the darkness. In the special seating area, General Vex Tar sat with his mouth open like a landed fish. The proud Vorthan warrior who had mocked Earth and its people could not form words. His champion, the unbeatable Thexmor, lay defeated by a creature he had called a weak little worm ambassador. So Young opened her eyes and saw her planet's future change in an instant. The arena held its breath as the two fighters moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. Thexmor spun around trying to find the human who had vanished like smoke. His yellow eyes burned with anger and confusion. How could such a small, slow creature move so fast? Deho was behind the alien, now moving like a shadow. He had learned this technique from studying the old masters of Earth martial arts. They taught that size and strength meant nothing if you could not catch your enemy. The human had spent years learning to move without sound, to strike without warning. Thexmor swung two of his arms backward, hoping to catch the human. But Deho was already gone again. He rolled under the alien's legs and came up on the other side. The crowd watched in amazement as the small Earthman seemed to disappear and reappear around his giant enemy. "This is impossible," General Vex Tar said from his seat. "No creature can move like that, Ambassador." So Young allowed herself a small smile. She remembered watching Deho train in the Earth facilities. He had practiced the same moves 10,000 times until they became as natural as breathing. "Human soldiers do not just learn to fight," she said quietly. "They learn to become one with the fight itself." Down in the arena, Thexmor was getting frustrated. He swung all four arms at once, trying to catch the human in a trap of bone and muscle, but Deho bent backward like a reed in the wind. The alien's fists passed just inches from his face. The crowd was making new sounds now. Excitement replaced their earlier laughter. They had never seen anything like this small creature who moved like liquid lightning. Some of the aliens began to cheer for the human. Thexmor roared again and charged forward with all his strength. He would crush this annoying little pest. Once and for all, his feet thundered on the sand as he built up speed. No creature alive could dodge him when he moved this fast. But Deho was not trying to dodge anymore. He was studying his enemy with the cold focus of a hunting wolf. He watched how Thexmor's arms moved when he ran. He saw the slight favoring of the left leg that meant an old injury. He noticed the way the alien's head tilted just a little when he turned. Most importantly, he saw the gap. It was tiny, just a small space, where the thick neck met the massive shoulder hidden under layers of what looked like natural armor. But Deho had studied alien anatomy files for months before this fight. He knew that all Vorthan warriors had the same weakness, a bundle of nerves that controlled their entire nervous system. His teacher Park Jin-woo had always said that patience was the greatest weapon. A true warrior waits for the perfect moment, then strikes with everything he has. That moment was coming very soon. Thexmor was almost on top of him now. The alien had lowered his head like a charging bull. His four arms were spread wide to grab the human and squeeze the life from his small body. Victory was just seconds away. The crowd was screaming so loud that the arena walls shook. Millions of voices created a wall of sound that could be heard from space. But in the center of that noise, Deho heard only silence. He felt his heartbeat slow as time seemed to move, like thick honey. Everything his teachers had taught him came together in this single moment. 15 years of training, 10,000 hours of practice. Every lesson learned from victory and defeat. All of it focused into what would happen in the next 3 seconds. Thexmor took his final step toward what he thought would be an easy victory. The human was trapped with nowhere to run. The alien's forearms reached out to grab his prize, but the human was no longer thinking like prey. He was thinking like a predator. The giant arena sat on planet Nexus Prime like a golden bowl under 3 bright suns. The building was so big that 50 Earth football stadiums could fit inside it. Millions of alien creatures filled the floating seats that moved slowly around. The arena like a giant wheel. Each alien looked different from the others. Some had blue skin with 6 arms. Others had crystal bodies that sparkled in the light. There were creatures with wings, creatures with tentacles, and creatures that looked like walking trees. In the center of the arena was a circle of red sand. The sand had dark stains on it from many fights before. Today would add more stains to that sand. The crowd made sounds like thunder as they waited for the fight to begin. Some creatures roared, others clicked their claws, and some made musical notes that filled the air. Commander Kang De-ho stood in the middle of that red sand circle. He was a human from Earth and looked very small compared to everything around him. He wore simple black clothes and had no weapons. The man was 32 years old with dark hair and calm eyes. He had trained for 15 years to become a Navy SEAL. The best soldiers on his planet, across from him stood something that looked like a nightmare. Thex Moore was 8 feet tall and had 4 arms. Each arm was as thick as a tree trunk. His skin was gray and looked like metal armor. His head was shaped like a triangle with yellow eyes that glowed like fire. He had won 300 fights in this arena and never lost even one. The alien crowd loved him because he always put on a good show before killing his enemies. The announcer was a creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in the air. It spoke in a voice that echoed through the arena like music. Today we see something very special. The great Thex Moore will fight a creature from the small world called Earth. This human thinks his tiny planet should join our galactic alliance. The crowd made loud sounds. Some laughed because they thought it was funny that such a small creature would fight their champion. Others made angry sounds because they thought humans were too weak to deserve a place among the great star nations. Thex Moore looked down at the human and showed his teeth. They were sharp like knives. Little earthworm, he said in a voice like grinding stone, I will make your death quick. Your bones will decorate my trophy room. De-ho said nothing. He had learned long ago that talking before a fight was wasted energy. Instead, he watched his enemy carefully. He noticed how Thex Moore moved, which leg he put his weight on, and how he held his 4 arms. The alien was strong and fast, but he was also proud. Pride made fighters make mistakes. In the special seats above the arena sat Ambassador Lee, so young. She was 40 years old and had worked for 10 years to get Earth a chance to join the Galactic Alliance. Her black hair was pulled back tight and her face showed no emotion, but inside she was worried. The leaders of 20 different alien worlds were watching this fight. If De-ho lost, Earth would never get another chance. Next to her sat General Vextar, the leader of the Vorthon military. He was the same species as Thex Moore, but older, and covered in scars from many battles. Your pet human looks scared, he said too. So young. Maybe he wants to surrender before my warrior breaks him. So young kept looking straight ahead. Commander Kang does not know fear. That made Vextar laugh. It sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. We shall see, Earth woman. We shall see. The referee was a creature made of living crystal from the Altair system. It raised one glowing arm, and the crowd became quiet. The silence was so complete that De-ho could hear his own heartbeat. Fighters prepare the crystal being announced. De-ho took a deep breath and thought about his training. Master Park Jin-woo had taught him that every enemy had a weakness. The bigger they were, the more weaknesses they had. Thex Moore was very big. The alien champion raised all 4 arms and roared. The sound made the arena shake. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. Thex Moore wanted to scare the human, but Day-Ho had heard scarier sounds during his missions in Earth Wars. 3. The referee counted Day-Ho shifted his weight to his left foot, just a tiny bit, 2. Thex Moore began to lean forward, ready to charge, 1. The human closed his eyes for just a moment and thought of his home on Earth. He thought of his teacher, Park Jin-woo, who had died 2 years ago. He thought of all the people on Earth who were counting on him fight. The crowd exploded with sound as Thex Moore charged forward like a runaway truck. His 4 arms spread wide to catch the human, no matter which way he tried. To run. The alien moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. The red sand flew up behind his feet like a dust storm, but when Thex Moore reached the spot where the human had been standing, he found nothing but empty air. Day-Ho had moved, at the very last second sliding to the right like water flowing around a rock. The alien's speed worked against him now. He could not stop or turn fast enough for just one moment. Thex Moore was off balance. That moment was all Day-Ho needed.